Hey everybody, welcome to A Valid Answer with Scott and Marshall. That's right, we are here from two different cities. Marshall, say hi so everybody knows that you're actually here.
Hi, everyone.
All
I've got to
right,
turn my
cool.
volume down on my other monitor. There we go.
Oh,
We're good.
gotcha. Yeah, this is Scott, the capitalist conservative pastor, and Marshall, the social liberal atheist, coming at you right here every Sunday night at 5 and Monday night at 4. As you can see on our title, we're going to talk a little bit about some current events of things that happened. Well, they happened where I am and where Marshall used to be. But now Marshall is living someplace that didn't get to feel the earthquake that happened in the Kern County area over out in Ridgecrest. Did you feel anything at all where you were, Marshall?
No, I escaped just in the nick of time. And my daughter even left Bakersfield and was here, I think. She was on the road before it even hit. So, nobody in my family felt it. However, neighbors did report noticing it on the morning of the 4th of July. One of our friends in the neighborhood said that she noticed her chandelier swinging and they felt a little something, something, but it was all extremely minor. There are earthquakes out here. In fact, the last earthquake I felt was when I was out here in December on a short trip. There was like
Ah,
a 3.2 in the region. So the area that I'm in is seismically active.
well, I mean,
I
the
am.
the San Andreas Fault is actually basically runs right between Bakersfield and the Central Coast, right? It runs right along there up through Paso Robles. In fact, I think Josh Gunderson's on right now. Josh, don't you basically like live right over the top of the San Andreas Fault as it runs up that valley there?
Mhm.
But it's between us, right?
Yeah, I think it might be a little to the east of him, but he's very close to it.
Yeah.
And of course, the concern is if that thing goes, it won't just go in one spot. It will actually be a long tear in the earth. This is what we mean when we talk about the big one. What scientists expect is it won't just be one spot. And that's one of the things that people get wrong about earthquakes. They think an earthquake happens in just one spot, like you could drop a pin on the location. And they think that because in all of the maps and all the news coverage,
Yeah.
everybody's
There's
always
literally a
concerned
little
about the
pin.
epicenter. Yeah, the epicenter or the hypocenter, which is the actual space in the Earth's crust where the actual cracking occurs.
Because that's what people don't
However, with
realize is that
many
sometimes it's
earthquakes,
closer to the surface and sometimes it's deeper down. And
right,
so which ones are
right.
more dangerous? More
I
closer to the
think the
surface?
ones that are more shallow, but
Yeah.
I could be wrong about that. But I do know I would imagine there's sort of an optimal height where it's sort of a sweet spot in terms of depth, and then you get the maximum effect of the shaking, if you will. I think closer to the surface though is more dangerous.
Yeah, I think
Nonetheless,
we have a comment here coming in from Carrie who watches this all the time. She was in the Northridge earthquake. She's saying, and the Northridge, I remember reading about that one. That one was a shallow quake, epicentered in a
yeah,
metropolitan area.
yeah.
But yeah, that one was a much shallower quake. So that means it was you really felt it more. But yeah, she's saying she was having flashbacks to that because she was in the Northridge earthquake. So that's crazy.
Yeah. So what ends up happening is with these larger quakes, you actually get a tear in the earth, where the quake isn't just at one epicenter; it's actually spread out, and it could be several miles, or even hundreds of miles, as it was with the magnitude 9 that took place off the coast of Japan back when they had that tsunami and everything.
Oh yeah.
That was actually a rift on the seafloor that was hundreds of miles long. And what they're concerned with is that when the big one hits, you're going to get this tear. And there's different scenarios that we might have seen on TV out here in California
And
where
it'll
they
be
show
just like
something
it'll be
starting.
just like the movie San Andreas, right? That was a completely accurate depiction of what would happen, right?
Not at all, not at
See,
all.
see, when
But
we
what will
came,
happen?
we came, we were on Friday night. with this one, just to catch up on that. We were in a theater watching a movie. We were actually watching the new Spider-Man movie. We're about 30 minutes into the movie, and it's a big old action sequence. I think we missed the first part of the actual earthquake because it's a big old action sequence, it's loud, and all of a sudden, like the action sequence suddenly ended, and the person goes flying off, and all of a sudden, like our chairs are still moving. Like my wife was like, she was going to turn around, and ask the person behind her to stop kicking her chair, and it was just moving. All of a sudden, everybody in the theater is like, oh, this is an earthquake. There was one yesterday. Okay, yeah. And it went for about another 20 seconds or so. We're all just shaking as the movie's still playing. And then we're all just sitting there like, so what's going to happen? Is it over? Should we leave? What's going on? And then finally, like 10 seconds later, an employee comes in and says, everybody out. And everybody just kind of nonchalantly like, okay. And everybody just kind of got up and just started walking. It's like, there was no like, people running for the doors, everything like that. And ultimately we came back around. They opened the theater back up about 20 minutes later. We all went back in and finished watching the movie. But I was planning on using that line from for the movie San Andreas. I was going to come out of the theater and say, boys, you know what that is? What? It's Bakersfield, or what's left of it. That was a line from San Andreas. You remember that line? Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, yeah. Then the helicopter, and she's like, "What's that?"
And it wasn't Bakersfield at all.
They actually filmed it in Bakersfield. They filmed it in a school parking lot and made it look like a shopping center. But they filmed it in a school parking lot in Southwest Bakersfield, right around actually where I work. Yeah, I don't know if the aerial shot was Bakersfield or not, but the parking lot that was supposedly happening with all the looting and stuff, they actually shot that in a parking lot, school parking lot here in Bakersfield. But wow. Yeah, I just love that. I love that line. And she's all, "What is that?" He's all, "Bakersfield, or what's left of it." So.
Well, I actually expected more damage and destruction in I'm trying to say Northridge in Ridgecrest.
Yeah.
However, while there was a fair amount of cracking in the earth, as well as a lot of fires and damage, I haven't heard any reports of any fatalities.
Well, again, at the same time, like you think of you think of the 89 earthquake in San Francisco, you think of the 94 earthquake in Northridge, mm-hmm. You're talking freeways flattened. Sections of freeways fell down. Overpasses came down. Multi-story buildings came collapsing down on top of the second story landing on top of the first, the bottom floors and stuff like that. And people getting, obviously people getting killed in those situations where, Ridgecrest doesn't have an infrastructure like that. It doesn't have, skyscrapers or, giant freeway overpasses that are 30 feet in the air and stuff like that. So I'm imagining that you look at the pictures. I saw images of the road where there was a shift in the road, and it was a good 6 foot lateral and like a 3 foot vertical difference. Yes. Now, if that wasn't a flat road, if that was an overpass, that would have been collapsed. If there was traffic on that road on an overpass, there would have been fatalities there. It's just the epicenter was someplace that was mostly unpopular. I'm not trying to minimize what happened to the people of Ridgecrest. They lived through it, but it was a town that didn't have a similar infrastructure as a large metropolitan area. So the visible damage doesn't seem as much because there isn't anything drastic that came collapsing or coming down or anything like that. I remember the earthquake. Josh Gunderson, I don't know if you were living there at the time, but it was, I think, 2004, the earthquake near Paso Robles. I was in Cayucas with our family, staying there at the time. And when the earthquake happened, that was really the first time. I was 30 some odd years old, and it was really the first time I'd ever felt an earthquake. I lived my whole life in California, and how old was I? I was like 28 or 29 years old. And that was the first time in my whole life that I'd felt an earthquake. And that was you were talking about this in our pre-show a little bit earlier, Marshall, how everything moves. That was the weirdest thing, because you think of like being in a multi-story building and the building swaying. I've been in buildings when they're swaying just in the wind. I've been on, tall things that are moving, but I was on the beach, like the place we were staying. I was parked in the car. We're getting ready to leave, and I was in my car, and I felt the car shaking, and I stepped out of the car, and I'm standing on the ground. The sand is right there. The water's over there. It's like I'm at sea level. I'm saying like that, and the whole ground is shaking. That was like it's not just, it doesn't rattle a house. It's the ground beneath your feet is shaking and moving. And I remember I remember that happening, and that was 2004, and that was in Paso Robles. And we left, and the roads were all cracked. And I remember a section of a building had collapsed and killed someone in downtown. I think at Paso Robles or Atascadero, something like that. But yeah, that was pretty crazy. But yeah, the whole thing shakes, and that's what's pretty crazy.
Yeah, Carrie Allison mentions that when she was in Northridge, it was up and down for her, whereas a lot of people in Bakersfield experienced the quake as a rolling left to right kind of motion, if you will. And that makes sense because said she was in Northridge or near the area, or either in or near the area. And of course, it makes sense, because when you're there, you're actually closest to the place where there's displacement, vertical and horizontal displacement. So
Well,
there's a
Josh is
lot
saying
of
that
stuff
too.
going on.
And I was wrong. It's a 2003, not 2004. 2003. He said he was watching. He was there when that 2003 quake hit. He says he was watching cars in the parking lot go up and down 2 or 3 feet.
Yes, because you're
So
very close, very
So did we
close.
not really? Did we not feel this far away? Did we just not feel the up and down? Because I was mostly feeling a back and forth and left and right. We didn't really feel an up and down. Was there probably a lot of up and down at Ridgecrest, or are there different types of movements? I'm asking you these questions because I know you studied up on this type of physics stuff before.
Well, there's two different types of waves. And yes, the further you are from the epicenter, then the less just motion overall that you're going to get. And it takes a lot of energy to displace something vertically, more so than horizontally. Think of like a ripples in a pond, like you throw a rock, and where the rock hits, you get the big splash. But then away from the splash, you just have the ripples, and it's pretty much exactly the same thing, only with the earth. And a lot of times when people will experience an earthquake, they'll pick up on what's called the P waves, which are the primary waves, and you'll just kind of notice this little sensation. You'll notice, like, hey, are we having an earthquake? You'll have
Yeah.
this thought like something's just not right, like something feels weird. You might even pick up a little bit on the noise, like there might be a little bit of noise going on because, again, everything around you is moving and rattling.
Yeah.
But it takes you a second to realize, hey, oh my God, earthquake. And then all of a sudden you'll get this sudden jolt, and the jolt will be somewhat forceful, and that's where people report, being knocked off the toilet, which
Yeah.
apparently is a very sensitive place to be in an earthquake. I've talked to a couple
He's
of people
gonna
who've
kill me.
had that
He's
experience.
gonna kill me. My brother was, because we were all packed up, ready to leave the little. It was like a
Yeah,
little rental trailer place that we were staying at, and I was in
yeah.
the car packed everything, and he was on the toilet, and he said it was like he was like a rodeo. He was riding. He was, whoa. So sorry, Chuck. I just embarrassed you.
My dad had my dad had a similar experience with the Big Bear Landers Quake series. I think it was the Big Bear one that took place later in the day. It was a day when we had two big earthquakes in one morning. We were both teenagers, and I'm sure you had to have felt that one. You may just have forgot. But it was a day
Maybe.
back in like 92, 91, or 92.
What time
And
was it?
there were
Was it like
two
early in the
quakes on
morning
the
or
same.
something?
There was one before dawn, and I remember being awakened in my bed before dawn, and
See,
then
I
going
that
back to
that is the
sleep, going
one.
back.
That is the one I remember
Yes.
waking up, but I didn't wake up to the feeling. I just woke up, and I'm like, why?
Hmm.
Why did I
Hmm.
wake up? And when I went out, my mom said we just had an earthquake, and she pointed to the plant hanging in the pool in the backyard was sloshing. So I didn't. It must have woke me up, but I don't remember feeling it. I remember, that's why I say that was the one in 2003 was the first one I ever felt, because I was awake, alert, and everything. And I'm feeling. So I remember
Yeah.
waking up, but not knowing why I woke up. And my mom said we just had an earthquake. I'm like, oh, okay, maybe that's why I woke up. But yeah, I do
Yeah.
remember. I do remember that one, but I don't remember experiencing it.
Right. So when those secondary waves hit and you get that jolt, now all of a sudden you hear all the noise, you experience all the motion. Now you're getting the full-on earthquake experience, and that's when people start to get scared because, again, the farther out you are, the more gentle it feels, and then if you're close enough to the epicenter, you'll get that jolt
Yeah.
and you'll have that scary moment. But then a lot of these things are over in like 10, 15 seconds. Most of the everyday run of the mill garden variety earthquakes
Mhm.
that we have in California only last about 10 or 15 seconds. They're not very long duration events. They feel long when you're going through them, but they're actually over very quickly. But then I think with this 7.1, for example, I think the shaking lasted almost a minute. And that's the other thing that people don't realize
Yeah.
is that the duration of the shaking amplifies the damage because it's more time for things to march across the floor or to fall off shelves or tiles to fall off buildings or windows to break and all of these other things to happen. So the longer the shaking, the much greater the damage is going to be over time, the much more dangerous it becomes.
I have a question about that, actually. My son's actually asked me, and I'm like, I actually don't know, but maybe you might know, Marshall. Does it happen at the same time everywhere, or does it actually ripple out like a ripple? So the event happens here, and then a ripple. So how fast is it traveling? If it was 150 miles from us, did it take 20 seconds to reach us? Did it take 10 minutes to reach us? I mean, what is the speed of that ripple as it's coming out?
If I recall, the speed is at the speed of sound. I could be wrong about that, but
Well, the
that
speed of
is
sound
what
is
I
based on
recall.
the speed of sound is based on air. You know what I mean? Like how fast sound
Yes,
travels
but
through
it's
air. But
similar. It's similar through the earth. So my understanding is that it's similar, and no, it's not instant. So let's say an earthquake happened in Ridgecrest right now. Bakersfield is about what 60, 80 miles
yeah,
from
about 70 some
Ridgecrest,
odd
let's
miles.
say
Yeah.
roughly. Okay, so it takes several minutes for the shaking to reach you. Now that is how earthquake early warning systems work. What happens is earthquake happens in Ridgecrest
Warning! There's an
right
earthquake
away.
happening somewhere else away from you. We couldn't warn the people where it was. Sorry about that. Earthquake warnings don't work where
That's
the
true.
earthquake was. Because I remember it happened. Like literally, it was like 30 minutes in. It was funny because it was like at 8:30, but all of the reports say that it happened at 8:20, and so we were like, wait a minute. So did it take 10 minutes for it to get to us? And that's what happened.
Yes, it did.
Oh wow.
Yes, it did. Well,
But
I
isn't
don't know
the whole
about 10
ground?
minutes. That
But
that
isn't the whole
10
ground
minutes
shaking or
sounds like a
no?
long time. Yes, it sounds like a long time. I don't know about 10 minutes, but it will take several minutes. But
Well,
what
how fast is the
happens
speed of
is,
sound?
and
Speed of sound's only like 700 and something miles per hour, right?
you
Even
could
even
be right. As
even
I
traveling
recall the
supersonic,
simulations.
even traveling supersonic to
Uh-huh.
get 100 miles takes several minutes.
Well, let's look it up. Let's
Yeah.
look it up. How fast do now? I know the primary waves are a lot faster.
Hmm.
Earthquakes do not occur below 700 kilometers, 200, about 7 to 8 kilometers per second, with the S waves traveling at 3 to 4 kilometers per second. So you have two different
That's
speeds. So the
fast.
P waves,
But
yes.
that's still pretty
So
fast. That's kilometers per second.
yeah. Let's see here. I'm wondering if it will give me.
So that's like maybe a minute or two
Wow.
to travel like a couple hundred miles, right? 100 miles.
Yeah, that makes about sense from the simulation videos that I recall.
Yeah.
They say the effect is similar to like a sonic boom. Anyway, you can Google this, but the bottom line is the waves do travel, and that's how the early warning systems work. Because what happens is you get the earthquake starts, let's say in Ridgecrest, the system can react immediately. It senses it immediately. It immediately, within probably a second or two, calculates what the likely magnitude is, and then it decides how far to propagate the warning. And then it transmits a warning, which then appears in your cell phone. It makes your cell phone buzz or whatever. It can also be used to close off critical infrastructure, stop trains that are in motion. So if you have a
Hmm.
subway train or a freight train or something, it can apply the brakes. And then you can get like, 10, 15, 20, 30 seconds early warning this way. And in fact, I've seen the system happen in Mexico, Japan. I haven't seen it firsthand. You can go on and check out the YouTube videos though, and you can watch where there'll be an earthquake warning where you watch where it happens live, and they're saying, "Oh, hey, this is an earthquake warning. There's a warning. We expect strong shaking to start in 10 seconds." And then okay, now
Dang.
the shaking started
So,
and all of
sorry,
that.
I'm
So
laughing right now at something Josh Gunderson just posted. He said you activated his Google search when you said whatever it was that you said, search Google. It he's listening to your voice and it turned on his Google search. It's like me going right now going, "Hey Siri." Now I just activated everybody's phones.
hmm hmm
Like I just activated
yeah,
mine.
so that's funny.
Yeah.
So that's the thing, and that's how the early warning system works, and that's actually why people in Los Angeles did not receive early warning from the quake in Ridgecrest, and they complained about it. But the reason was the system simply didn't register it as being severe enough to warrant alarming all of Los Angeles.
Because by the
So
time
the
it get to
people in
Los
LA
Angeles,
felt
it wouldn't be big enough by the time it hit Los Angeles anyway.
it wasn't big enough to do any kind of damage or anything. But as you and I know, having grown up in earthquake country, even a few seconds warning is all the time you need to duck and cover. Whereas if you live in tornado country, you want at least a few minutes warning, because you've got to go maybe from the second floor of your house to the storm cellar, and you're going to need about 60 seconds to make
Yeah.
that dash.
And
And
when you
then
bring
but
those up, and I feel obligated to talk about that, is that here's something that I mentioned on there, that after the first one on the 4th, after the first one on Thursday, I was like, okay, that's okay. Earthquake happened. Everybody, nobody else felt. My family did. Okay, cool. And then on the 5th, the next day, there's one, was the first time it like triggered like, oh, we could continue having these. I've never felt like you have an earthquake and then you have aftershocks and all that kind of stuff. But the aftershocks are always aftershocks. They're never as big as the first one. I've never experienced where it's a big earthquake followed the next day by another bigger earthquake. And that's where it's like, so is this going to stop, or is this now like a thing going on? That was after the first one. I didn't really think about it. And even after the second one, I'm like, okay, well, what are the odds of this happening again? Are they getting bigger? I don't know. But I wasn't really, and all growing up, people, living in California, people living outside the state, I have relatives who live like in Iowa and stuff like that, who have said like, well, I don't want to live in California because, I don't want to live in earthquake country, where you could be, you could just any moment, it's just boom, earthquake happens. And I'm like,
yeah.
I don't know. I prefer that much more than knowing every year there will be hundreds of tornadoes in your area and it might hit you. But it will come. Or living on the East Coast, and every year there will be at least one hurricane that could very likely wipe out your city, but it's coming. It's like I was telling my sons, I go, it's like living in California is like driving a car. At any point you might get into an accident. At any point, that semi next to you, the tire might blow out or hit something or knock something into you. You didn't notice that thing in the road, and all of a sudden it hits it and knocks it, or a car turns in front of you. At any point, there could be an accident. You just never know where it's going to come, so you just live your life. People do it every day. We drive our cars knowing that there is a possibility that there could be a car accident, but that doesn't stop us from driving our cars, and we don't worry. Like, when we stay alert, but we don't like, oh, where's it coming from? Where's it coming from? I'm living in fear of getting a car accident. But to me, living in the Midwest or living on the East Coast is like driving a car down a certain road. And on that road, every day, there will be a piece of equipment that's suddenly going to come out in the road in front of some car. You don't know which car, but every day on that road, something's going to come out. And like, well, I'm just not going to drive down that road. That's literally saying, I know it's coming, but I'm going to take my risk anyway. Instead of like, it might come, it might not come. I never know when or where. I would rather, I don't know. Is there anybody in or out, anybody watching us who's lived in or out of California? What do you think? Does this scare you? Are you afraid of living in California now? Does, earthquakes happening 2 days in a row? Does that change? It hasn't changed my opinion. I still would rather live here than live in the Midwest or the East Coast. But has anybody else? I'm going to kind of to watch our response to see if anybody says anything about that. But so tell us a little bit more about the motion of earthquakes, Marshall, as far as like that. What causes the damage? Is it the vertical motion? Is it sideways motion? Is it the duration? What are some myths that people have about earthquakes that you can kind of debunk with information that you have?
Well, sure, I can do that. But real quick, I want to touch on something. The morning of the 4th of July, when I got up, I have a little earthquake monitoring app on my iPad, and there were a couple of 3 points in the ridge, 3.2, 3.4 in the Ridgecrest area. And I remember making note, oh, wow, they're having earthquakes in Ridgecrest. The bummer, but they're small. And
Yeah.
I think there was even one here near Bakersfield. There was one near Bakersfield the day or the evening before, but it
Now,
was
now
also very
you
small.
get notifications. How big do they have to be to get notified? Because there are things happening all the time, right? You're not getting
Like
notifications all the time.
3.0.
So it has to be above a certain threshold before you get notified.
Yeah,
Got it.
you can set it, and setting it anywhere below like a 3.1, 3.2, you're just going to get blown up, especially here in California because we have small 2 point something. We literally have dozens of them every single day. But unless you like live right on top of it, you're not going to feel it, and even then, you're probably not going to feel something that's below a magnitude 3
And has it
usually.
always been
But
like
then
that,
when
or has it always been like that, or
Mhm.
just now we're able to measure it? Like we're just now.
California is in motion. It is in motion, and well, as we have more sensors put in, we can detect more stuff, more motion.
But
So
that
over
doesn't
time, as
necessarily
we put
mean that more has happened recently. It's just we can
right,
detect
right,
it more.
there's no increase in the frequency of quakes necessarily. It's just now we're able to better detect them and measure them. And so they had some foreshocks, and then of course they had the big event on July 4th, and then that ended up probably triggering the even larger event. And they now say there's probably between like a 3 to 8% chance or whatever of an even larger quake happening here in Southern California as a result of what's happened there. And it would probably happen pretty much in that same vicinity as Ridgecrest. But you could get something that is bigger than a 7.1 in that area. We have to understand we're on the Ring of Fire. California is
Hmm.
tectonically active. And even though we don't really have volcanoes in Central and Southern California, there are extinct remnants of these features of volcanoes. Some of the landscape is volcanic in certain areas. It's very hard to see now because it's millions of years past. But there is also the possibility that you could have magma rising up to the earth and that there could be new volcanoes formed,
Well, just like that,
especially up in the desert,
just
the
like that
backside
move,
of the Sierra Nevada.
just like that movie Volcano, where it erupted on Wilshire Boulevard in downtown Los Angeles.
I'd be skeptical of that.
Yeah.
Usually, you have subduction taking place, and the subducted crust then has to descend far enough to be heated up, and then it bubbles back up. But usually, that's away from. It's not right on the fault. Usually, it's some distance inland from the fault. But
Okay,
you
so
can
let's.
have where faults converge. And you can get volcanoes in one spot, like Krakatoa, for example, is right on a couple of faults where the faults converge. But
All
anyway,
right,
it's different.
so talking about the Ring of Fire and myths of earthquakes and stuff like that. Um, would Lex Luthor's plan work? Is that where we're at right now? To where the San Andreas runs up along the Antelope Valley, crosses right around where Fraser Park is, runs alongside Maricopa, Taft, cuts across over by Paso Robles, and then all the way up down that
The
valley
Carrizo
there.
Plain, yeah.
Yeah, all the way through there. So when that big one happens across, so what's going to happen? So you and Josh and everybody, you guys are all just going to sink into the ocean, and then I will be left with beachfront property over on Buena Vista Road in Southwest Bakersfield. What exactly is going to happen?
If the big one's gonna hit, you are the one that's gonna get flooded. Josh is probably pretty safe. He'll get a lot of shaking, but he's not gonna drown. You'll drown because the Lake Isabella Dam will burst, and you'll get at least a few feet of water. So
Yeah, that's
hopefully
not
you can
drowning
stand
though.
up.
So, but you'll sink,
You
but
never
you'll sink
know.
into the ocean. Is that
Yeah,
what's going to
right here
happen?
on the coast, there is a tsunami threat, but I'm actually inland about 4 miles, and it would have to be a pretty big tsunami. And as I understand, off the California coast, actually, it drops off pretty good. We don't have the geology here as I understand it, to have a massive Japan-style tsunami here. I'm also protected by the coastal dunes. There are sand dunes, which if
Right,
I
but
were to
I'm
walk
talking
out,
about
look
I'm not
towards the
talking
beach.
about a tsunami or the water rushing up. I'm talking about at the San Andreas Fault,
Yeah, it's
the
not
California
happened that way.
falling off into the ocean and just sliding off and just disappearing in the water coming in. You guys just sliding off that continental shelf and into the deep ocean. That's what everybody talks about is going to happen. What's the problem with that myth?
Well, because it just doesn't work that way. The Pacific plate is grinding past the North American plate at about the rate at which your fingernails grow. So that's the speed at which the two plates are grinding past each other. And of course, we know that the San Andreas Fault hasn't given way in probably about 150 years. So you figure about 150 years worth of fingernail growth. That's many yards, several, many
And
tens of
then at some
yards.
points, it's just going to jolt,
It's going to
right?
snap somewhere. And when that happens, it's probably going to create a rupture tens to hundreds of miles long. And you're going to get several feet of displacement, several yards of displacement, maybe even 20, 30 feet, let's say. Um, and then that's going to be it. And the water, because we're still going to be above sea level, so nobody's going to break and fall off,
So
into the ocean or
where did
anything
that
like
myth
that.
where did that myth come from? Where how did
I
that
have
become
no
the
idea.
it'll completely separate and break off? Why is that even a thing?
Angry Christians who hate California, probably.
Come on.
Yeah, I really don't know. I don't know where that myth came from, but it is a myth and it's absolutely not going to happen. Now, the Central Valley where you live and where I once lived was once an inland sea, and tectonic activity caused the water to essentially drain out. Actually, it what was left of it is now in Buena Vista Lake, which is near where you live.
Yeah.
Um, but that's just the very last pathetic remnants of it. In fact, all of Bakersfield in that area was at one time a big swamp
Yeah, big
from
swamp
all of
or
the water.
delta, yeah,
But
from the
yeah,
current
but then
river
of
basically
course
flowing into the valley.
they dammed up the Lake Isabella. They dammed
Watch
up
your
the Kern River,
language.
forming Lake Isabella, right? And so yeah, so that's
We
actually
we were
the
we were
greater
actually up in
threat.
Lake Isabella. We were up in Lake Isabella a couple months ago, and we had lunch up there at the Dam Cafe, right there on the corner of
Well, there
Main
you
Street.
go.
Yeah, and they just love the name of their place because you have to say it.
Yeah,
Sorry,
but
but yeah.
California's
The
not
the
going to
maps
break
show
off
that
and
I'll be
fall
5 feet
into the ocean.
underwater. At about 10 hours after a break in the Isabella Dam, my house will be about 5 feet underwater.
All right, that sounds about right. And then the other thing is the cracks in the earth. I know the news media has made a big deal of the cracks out there in Ridgecrest, which, by the way, are very easy to see and spot because it's just desert. It's flat
Yeah.
desert, more or less. Not entirely flat, but it is desert out there. The cracks are actually fairly small. They're not big enough to fit an entire car or city or building in. I did see a picture of someone who jumped in one of the cracks, and she was at about her chest level,
Well, that
and
was dumb.
took a picture. Well, but this whole thing where a big, huge crack in the earth opens up and then swallows something and then closes back up, that just doesn't happen. I've never even seen or heard of that happening. It just doesn't happen, even with these big, massive quakes.
But I've seen
Just
it in the
doesn't happen.
movies. You telling me the movies are lying
Yeah,
to me?
well,
What?
Scott, you and your movies, I tell you, the movies aren't real. I hate to break it to you. You
Ugh.
know. Now, if that gives you a fit, wait until you learn what else you believe that isn't real. But
Oh
I
my gosh!
digress.
Don't even. That's not what we're doing today. We'll do that another time.
That's not the topic today. Other things, earthquake weather is another thing, and
Earthquake
earthquake weather
weather?
does not exist.
Oh,
People
you're saying
say
it
that
doesn't
the
exist.
weather,
Okay, all right. I'm all. My
right,
knees are aching. There's
right.
gonna be a quake coming.
Well, there's a lot of people who believe in it, though, and you'll hear people say, "Oh, this is earthquake weather," and they say it right there in Bakersfield, where they'll notice where you have unseasonable weather, so unseasonably hot, unseasonably cold, some sort of
Well,
strange weather
it
event.
certainly was unseasonably cool. Not it wasn't cold, but it certainly was unseasonably cool. On literally on the 4th of July and the day leading up to the 4th of July, it was
Yeah,
92, 93 here in Bakersfield on the 4th of July. It was.
yeah, which is about 5 or 6 or 7 degrees cooler. Usually, you're flirting with 100
Usually it's over
around that
100.
time. Yeah, it often is. It can be.
Hey, I want to
Um,
bring up something real
usually,
quick. I want to bring up
go
something
ahead.
real quick that Carrie has mentioned this twice. wondering if there is a conspiracy theory around the listing the magnitudes. And I have another question about the magnitudes, but she's saying something like, are they downgrading the magnitudes to not scare people? But at the same time, I want to know is why is the magnitude system the way that it is? Because it almost could be like, oh, it was a 6.8 yesterday and this one's a 7.2. So you think 6.8, 7.2, okay, that's 0.3 difference or 0.4 difference or whatever it is. But really it's 10 times stronger from that distance to that. Why is it, is it a conspiracy? Are they trying to make it where it doesn't sound as bad? Or why is it that it's exponential? Why doesn't an earthquake that's 10 times as strong, why isn't it 100 compared to a 10 instead of a 7.1 compared to a 6.8?
Right. Well, the original Richter scale was logarithmic, with each degree of magnitude being 10 times bigger than the number preceding it. So a 7 is 10 times larger than a 6 with the Richter scale. And then I think they went and they made it even more confusing with what they call the moment magnitude scale, which is roughly similar to the Richter scale, but it's a little different. I don't know precisely the degree of difference, but it's roughly similar. So a 7.2 is something like, I think it could be as much as 30 something times more powerful than the 6.9 that happened on July 4th. So it's incredibly more powerful.
Right, but
despite the fact it's a few degrees of difference in
that
magnitude.
Measuring tape seems intentionally deceptive then.
Well, I understand that. And the purpose of the measuring tape is really for scientific purposes. It's not really intended for, the public to say, oh my gosh, it wasn't that bad or whatever. It's really so scientists can get a handle on the amount of energy dispersed by a seismic event. That's really what they're measuring. They're measuring the energy released in the event.
A longer measuring stick better? Like that's one of the things that I always look at Celsius versus Fahrenheit. Celsius, the numbers are so close together that it's 30 degrees outside or 30.2 degrees. It's like, well, yeah, but isn't it easier to see the spread when you're measuring 90 versus 106 than it is measuring 32 and 32.5? Mm-hmm. Isn't it better to have and I might not be, I'm totally probably not even right on those conversions, but I'm just saying, isn't it better to have a measuring stick that is broader so you can see the differences and the discrepancies better than it is to have a short measuring stick and be like,
Well, you can get into a situation where I guess it's too fine and that causes confusion. Again, this is scientists who are doing scientist things and they're measuring this for scientific purposes. In fact, the Fujita scale, which is used for measuring tornadoes, was recently revised precisely because people did not understand the difference between a 3, a 4, and a 5, and so on. So they had changes.
That was explained really clearly in the movie Twister. It should be completely understandable because, again, movies don't lie, right?
Right. But I don't know. Again, I don't know exactly what they did with the scale, but I know that they use a different scale now, or I think it's an enhanced scale, as they call it. And the purpose, again, is to more effectively communicate to the public the size and magnitude, if you will, of the tornadoes and the danger or the destruction that they caused. And it may be something similar with earthquakes. But I agree. It's mystifying, especially when they go a couple hours later and they revise the magnitude. But the reason why they're revising the magnitude is they have time to collate all of the data and evaluate it. Because when they first put out the notice, it's usually a snap judgment.
Yeah.
And
it's like the news. We got to get it first. Doesn't necessarily have to be accurate. It's more important to be first.
Right.
And then,
right.
Yeah. But like I said, going back to like you compare this to something. You compare the Richter scale or the one that does the tornadoes for whatever it is, the Fujitsu scale,
enhanced Fujita scale,
scale, whatever it is. But you compare that to like how they measure nuclear explosions. It's really simple. a,
Hmm.
you have a kiloton, you have a 10 kiloton, you
One
have a mega,
Hiroshima.
you
Yeah.
have a, a megaton bomb. Okay, well, you know that mega is, whatever, it's calculable. You know that it's 10,
1,000. Hmm.
yeah, it's a 10 times is this and 100 times is that and 1,000 times is that, because why don't they have a scale like that that makes sense, that accurately
Hmm.
represents the
Hmm.
actual differences?
Hmm. Yeah, Josh Gunders. Did I miss a question? I was just reading Josh's question real quick, or comment.
Yeah. Oh, he's just talking about
Okay,
the imperial, measurements in the U.S. is that I was talking about Celsius
that
versus
they're a little more
Fahrenheit.
fine.
Yeah.
Right, which Celsius, frankly, is probably suitable. I mean, if I tell you it's going to be 33 in Bakersfield, does it really make a difference if it's 98 versus 99? You know? So that's why, certain scales. And again, so my whole answer to all of this is scientists are doing scientist things and they want to understand these events from a science perspective. Whereas you and I in pop culture and everyday life, we don't need to know exactly the amount of energy released by the event. We want to know how bad was it.
Yeah.
Our question that we ask as the general public is entirely different than the questions scientists ask when they are trying to understand a phenomenon. And that's why the measuring scale seems kind of esoteric to us, because it literally is esoteric. It's scientific secret knowledge, if you will,
Yeah.
that
And
you and I
it's
aren't really
and again,
roped
it's
in on.
it's the same type of thinking that at least in the beginning, in the 80s and 90s, was the difference between Mac and PC. Whereas PCs were created and not just created but marketed and everything by engineers. Like, it was like the engineering
Yeah.
behind it, whereas Mac was like, no, how does this computer make you feel? What can you do with it? And all the advertising for Mac was all about, here's what it can do for you. And PC's like, but it has this processor and this and it's like, yeah, but that doesn't mean anything. That's great that you know what that means, but it doesn't mean anything to the average person. The average person wants to know, what can it do for me? So that's my little Macintosh, is better than PC little rant. So had to deal with some PCs today at work, and I'm like, well, how the heck do you do this?
There's a few other things I want to hit with the whole earthquake thing
Yeah.
before we go, because we're about to wrap up here.
Yeah. A
First of
couple
all,
minutes here.
there's no evidence that animals can detect earthquakes. So if you're watching your dog or your cat today, folks, to
Did you
see if
see
there's
that
going to be an
meme?
earthquake, that's
Did you see
not
that meme?
reliable.
It showed a
No, I
picture of a
didn't.
dog with its eyes real big, and it says, after a night of fireworks and 2 consecutive earthquakes, all dogs in Bakersfield be
Oh,
like,
yeah.
it's like, yeah, poor people with all their dogs. But
Yeah, I
but I
can
mean,
imagine.
the dogs probably, obviously they're feeling the ground shake. It's got to be weird. But and then also, I just want to read this here from Luke chapter 21, verse 11. There will be great earthquakes, famines, and pestilence in various places, and fearful events, and great signs from heaven. So, obviously end times are coming right now. So there you go.
I'll let you have that one, Scott.
Yeah.
Um, with the way capitalism's running, it is the end times either way you slice it.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, other things is if you are caught up in an earthquake, one of the safest places to be is just under a table or a sturdy object that can protect your head from falling to
I,
debris.
I know growing
Doorways,
up,
however, are not necessarily.
I remember growing up
Hmm.
being told doorways because it's a strong point on there, but then they're like, yeah, but then the door is also swinging back and forth in the earthquake
Yeah,
and can
yeah.
hurt you.
There's all
I
kinds
was
of things
told, is
happening.
this a myth? I hope it's not a myth. I was told the triangle of life. I was
It's a
told,
myth.
is that a myth? Tell me about that.
Yeah, tell people what it is real quick.
Well, the idea is that when things collapse, very few things, that a lot of times in rubble, they find a lot of, floors and walls and things crumbled, but very few things literally fall flat into the corner. That a lot of things will crumble but hit against themselves, and to a good spot is to go on the floor against the wall. If there's obviously, if you have, I'm saying, like, if you have in a hallway or next to the side of a building or something like that, or or maybe not a side of a building, but if you don't have something solid to stand under, get as close to a corner as possible. You're saying that that's a myth?
Yes, it is a myth, and actually, the American Red Cross has, because it's a dangerous myth. The American Red Cross has actually answered that one, saying no, that's a complete myth. This idea that you can lay down next to your bed on the floor and somehow you're protected, No, things will fall straight down on top of you. And if there is not something between your head and the ceiling or whatever's falling off the shelves, you're going to get hit. You're not going to be
Well, yeah,
magically
obviously, if
protected by
you
some
if you
triangle of space.
if you
You get
have if you
under the
have
desk,
something
not
to get
next to it.
under, yeah, oh yeah, if you have something, get under it. I'm saying if you're walking down a hallway and there's nothing, is there a better chance in the corner than in the middle of the hallway?
Your chances are more or less even. The most important thing is always to protect your head
Yeah,
because that's what kills people. The other thing that people don't realize is a lot of times when there's an earthquake, they immediately rush outside. However, broken glass, or this is very common, brickwork or
yeah.
tiles from roofs can come loose, and people have often been injured and possibly even killed by things falling off the
Well,
roof during the earthquake
if
because
I
their
remember
instinct is to
correctly,
run outside.
I might be remembering this wrong. Josh, maybe remind me, but in that 2003 earthquake in Paso Robles, I believe that's how the woman that the fatality there was the roof collapse, the roof of the, like, it was like a shopping center or something like that. While she was outside, I don't know if she was escaping or running out, but I think that part, if I remember correctly, that's what I thought was what happened, but maybe I'm saying the wrong thing.
Yeah, yeah. Well, unfortunately, with a lot of these events, is you're really rolling the dice, and of course, that's the case with any type of natural disaster or anything else. Whether you get in an airplane, or you are driving in a car, or riding on a train, living in the Midwest, living in Florida, anywhere, there is just a certain amount of luck involved in whether or not something terrible happens to you. But to keep it in perspective, the odds of you dying in an earthquake are really, really super tiny.
Yeah.
So just like the odds of you dying in a tornado are really super tiny. And likewise, like with car fatalities, they're dropping. Even being caught up in a mass shooting. You know, we make all of this hoopla about it, but really the
Yeah.
odds are small. Now, this doesn't mean that we shouldn't take steps to mitigate. So we do want people to go out and prepare for earthquakes. You want drinking water. You want a first aid kit. You want a little bit of food. You want a flashlight and a portable
Because
radio.
really,
Do not
the biggest
anticipate.
thing, yeah, I say I think you probably get ready to go to this, but the biggest thing is not necessarily the damage that happens around you. It's the lack of infrastructure for the days and weeks following the earthquake. That's going to
Precisely.
be the problem.
And don't assume, by the way, following an earthquake that you'll be able to light a fire or that you'll be able to use an open flame. That might be, especially, I know back in the day, they've outlawed doing things like that because of fire danger. So if there's no way to fight fires because the infrastructure is knocked out, they're not going to want people to have open flames. So again, your emergency food supply needs to be something that you can eat cold without having to heat up.
Well, I
Something to
mean,
keep in
if
mind.
it's winter and it happens, you're lighting a fire to stay warm.
Well, okay, and look what happened in San Francisco, which killed more people than the earthquake. So I'm just
Right, but
saying,
that was the gas lane. That was the gas. That was yeah, that was also
well,
100
there were
years ago.
they were hanging people. They were literally executing people on the spot under martial law for starting fires.
Yeah, that was 100 years ago.
I know. So hopefully they don't try that again. But nonetheless,
Yeah,
don't
not the same danger.
be prepared for the possibility. Be prepared. You don't want to expose yourself to unnecessary danger.
Yeah,
So anyway, that's it. I will
yeah,
be
that
in
was
Bakersfield
earthquakes.
Friday through next Sunday. My next show will be right there in the office. Hopefully there'll be no big
Well, we're doing a show
aftershocks
tomorrow,
or
maybe,
anything
right?
while
We
I'm
still doing a
there.
show tomorrow?
We are doing a show tomorrow just like this, but
Yeah,
on Sunday of next week,
Sunday.
I'll be
You
right
will
there in the
be
studio with
live
you.
right here next to me. I gotta, darn it, now I gotta put the chair back and get everything all the way it was.
Yeah. All
So
right,
hey, check
Scott.
out all the comments. A lot of people are making comments on there about things for safety and kind of stuff like that. If you guys going to watch that on there and post your own comments on this particular thread, so people can kind of get an idea of what's good, what's bad, what things to look forward to, and be prepared for, and what things to avoid. So hey, it's been a great show, Marshall. Thank you very much for joining me
Thank you,
again.
Scott.
We'll be back tomorrow at 4, and you can catch us also. On Mondays at 4 and Sundays at 5 going forward. Till next time, stay safe out
See
there.
you then.